So I'm moving on to our next Bachelor question mark.
I went on dinner dates with every single prospect that I'm going to present to you.
The jazz of Dante Corleone. I like it.
Falcons fans, what's up, and welcome back to the Friday Five. I'm your host, Will McFadden, joined as always by Tori McElhaney, and we've got new jerseys on, Tori. What's up?
Woo! Honestly, it's a long time coming. I think they look great. I'm glad the red is back. They're very clean, very classic, which is the whole reason for the change in the first place, kind of going to something that is wearable for a very, very long time, because the Falcons don't want to be back here in another 5 to 6 years redesigning another set of uniforms. And so I am very happy with how these turned out. Of course, there's going to be everybody who has like opinions on what could have been done, but like the Falcons still have uniforms that could come into the ether at a certain point in the years to come. So all options, I feel like, are still on the table.
Yeah, and everybody, please, we're recording this at 11:18 Thursday morning. Mm-hmm. The jerseys dropped just over an hour ago.
Yeah, an hour and 18 minutes ago. Yeah.
So there's been a lot that has been put into these efforts, and you can find a lot of the descriptions to kind of the launch video to the stories that Tori did, and I want to give you the floor in a little bit. I know you kind of just gave a little summary, but I want you to just talk about that process. But there's been so much work put into this, and you went up to the Nike facility to talk about the design process and the details, and you did a podcast that I don't have the exact date that will be releasing.
I think it's already up.
Is it up?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's already up. Yeah.
Sweet. Well, share about that process and just kind of the work that you put into this.
Yeah, so I think a big part of my role in this, I was a very small part of a very huge operation, of course, but my role in this was to explain the reasoning for why the Falcons made the decisions that they made. And a lot of what I kind of found out is that a lot of the main points that the Falcons were holding on to was this idea of, when it comes to uniforms, less is more. Like, you don't, like, a player makes a uniform doesn't make a player. Like, you can put Bijan Robinson in anything and he's going to still be Bijan Robinson. So I think that, like, that was something when the Falcons were thinking about the direction that they wanted to go in with these new uniforms. It was always this foundation of, we want to look clean, we want to look classic, and we want to look Falcons. And I think that was accomplished through every single minuscule point of the design process. Heck, I wrote 750 words on why the Falcons made the decision that they made to put the like stripe on the pants, to put to do the number set the way that they did the number set. It's a brand new number set. Like, the reason for going back to the red, like, there as the primary home jersey, like, there's so many integral details about why the Falcons made the decisions that they did that you can find on AtlantaFalcons.com. You can go to our microsite, which is a beautifully done project that our UI UX team just completely put together. And I think that these are things that the organization are proud of. And also, let's be real, the red helmets are not going anywhere. I think that was like the main thing too that I wanted to make sure. If I explained nothing, I wanted to explain that the red helmets are not going anywhere. Like, the throwback uniforms, kind of keeping that moment in time special when the Falcons wear those uniforms. Like, that was something that even Bijan Robinson and AJ Terrell, they very much were like, they're called throwbacks for a reason. Like, there's a different energy that kind of infuses into the locker room when we have those on, when the red helmets come out, and we want to remain in that special novelty almost. So I'm getting too ahead of myself. Like, go read all the stories, go look at all the photos, watch the videos, anything and everything that you could possibly want around this new uniform launch, we have on AtlantaFalcons.com.
Yeah, go check it all out. And I love what you said about the alternate uniforms staying and remaining. And it is, I think, important to remember, because as amazing as they are to look at, like, they also are associated with usually the best games or the most kind of compelling games each season. And so that's weirdly building this memory bank of every time you think about those throwbacks. Hey, what's the Falcons, right? Aren't they like...
They're 15-3.
Yeah.
In the red helmet since they were introduced as a throwback option, I believe, in 2009.
Yep.
So obviously the current iteration was introduced in 2022.
Yeah.
But yes, there is
when they were first introduced back in 2009, and then there was that period where they were out of circulation, came back, and so in totality, there's a ton of success also associated with those. So I think that the mix they have right now with those is really working, and it kind of makes them feel magical. And it made me wonder, I was kind of looking at our opponents because I'm trying to think, okay, if those are special and that's what you set aside, who would you want to see that up against maybe next year? And then I also kind of landed on this would be just an incredible, I think, uniform combination. They play at home at some point, the Cincinnati Bengals. You know how the Bengals sometimes do their all whites, kind of zebra stripe?
Yeah.
Have that as their road, Falcons in their alternate.
Yeah.
That'd be it. That'd be, I think, such a fresh
I almost wonder, too,
look.
we don't know who the Falcons are playing in Spain yet. Could even the throwbacks in Spain be an option?
See, I like the red, though, in Spain.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I think bullfighting, I think all that stuff. I'm like, having this like bright red out there would be pretty cool, too.
I also really love, it happened last year, and I'd be okay if we continued to do it moving forward or continued to see it moving forward. The creamsicles versus the red helmets with Tampa Bay and the Falcons. I think that was arguably the best looking game aesthetically of the entire 2025 season. I loved that look. It just looked awesome. And I would love to see it again.
Yeah, you can't go wrong there. Even though, on the surface, I don't think you would think those two colors would look visually as cool as they do, but you're absolutely right. All right, so that's it about jerseys. But again, there's so much more content. If you want it, go check it out. And the other part, before we get to kind of the main part of today's podcast, which we're going to have a matchmaking game in honor of the draft to continue talking about draft prospects and give you all an idea of maybe who the Falcons, what could be a fit for Atlanta with their 5 picks. Tori, you are at owners' meetings to start the week. What was kind of the news? You got to talk to Ian Cunningham, Kevin Stefanski, Matt Ryan also kind of made the media rounds. What were some of the big stories to come out of owners' meetings?
Yeah, I think that, after Tua Tagovailoa was...
Nice.
Thank you. After he was signed with the Falcons, we heard from Ian Cunningham about this being an open competition at the quarterback position. And, we heard more from Kevin Stefanski just about what that looks like. And while the timeline for Mike's return still isn't something that they're willing to put a firm date on just yet, for good reason. You don't know kind of what things are going to look like in 3, 4, 5 months' time. But what Kevin Stefanski did say is the goal for Michael Penix right now is to get healthy. The goal for Tua is to kind of come in here with a fresh mindset and to lean into this fresh start. And so that was kind of one bucket of conversation, was all about the quarterback position. But I think in terms of just the newsiness of it, a lot of talk about extensions and 5th-year options. Extension for Drake London, who's playing on his 5th-year option in 2026. And then also the conversation of picking up the 5th-year option for Bijan Robinson and potentially an extension even in that same window. That was a big conversation with both Kevin Stefanski and Ian Cunningham. And Ian Cunningham was very honest, where he was like, it's not at this point in time. He was like, we have free agency, draft, all of that. We're really focused on those 2 things. But as soon as the draft's over, absolutely these are things that are next on the docket to really hone in and think about. But he said, but don't think for a second that we haven't already been thinking about those 2 things. So those were the big main pieces of storylines that I think came out of it. And again, just Ian Cunningham doubling down on he wants more swings at the plate on draft weekend. And he said, we may go into the 2026 NFL draft with 5 picks and we may come out with 5 picks. And we are prepared for that to happen. But he kind of was very honest. He was like, I hope that doesn't happen. I hope that there are more swings at the plate.
I think it's safe to say they're at least going to make the effort.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. And he did say, like, it takes two to tango. Like, you got to have some other teams willing to play ball with you a little bit. But that's the goal. And he's very honest and open about that.
This is one other small thing that you and I may care about more than like 90% of the people. But did he say that they were planning on having kind of a second round of free agency meetings and oh my gosh, they're making a lot of moves.
Yeah, I think it was kind of, I asked him this question just about like going into free agency. Did you expect kind of the level of signings that y'all were able to get pen to paper on? And he kind of said like, they went into this free agency period wanting to do what they can hopefully do in the draft in years to come, which is building your depth, kind of having guys who are developing behind your starters. He was like, we want to be able to do that in the draft, not necessarily in free agency moving forward, but that's the cards that we've been dealt in 2026. So we had to go out and be big players in free agency in the event we can't make anything happen and only bring in 5 guys in at the end of draft weekend.
And actually, that makes a lot of sense now that I'm thinking about it. When you look at specifically how they've approached free agency, it's if you're going to take a lot of the bites of the apple in the draft, right? Usually that's going to be kind of your middle rounds. You're going to get a lot of third round picks. You're going to get 4th, 5th round picks. Like that's usually, I feel like, where teams accrue those extra swings. Those are kind of the players that I feel like Atlanta has brought in with free agency. It's like these 1-year deals where you're getting value for one reason or another. They've had a flash year, but injuries, or they have had, peaks and valleys, and you're looking for consistent. Like they are taking that kind of swing approach in free agency. It's really interesting. All right, that does it for the first kind of part of our podcast. Let's go ahead and get to the bulk of it, which is going to be more of a draft conversation. Get ready for the Atlanta Falcons 2026 NFL Draft Matchmaker Game. All right, welcome back to our Atlanta Falcons matchmaking game.
Woo!
We're going to go through a bunch of different positions and really kind of lay out a few prospects that we think would be a good fit here in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean the Falcons are going to take them. Doesn't even really mean like they're going to go in the rounds that we kind of throw out. Like this is all projection, and it's really just a fun way, Tori, to talk about more prospects, because that's all we're trying to do this time of year, right?
Also, I love to be wined and dined. So as these guys are coming through, I'm like, show me what you got. I'm looking for a match, as the Falcons are.
There you go. Yeah. Anything that we can do to make sure that we are courting them appropriately, that these are all the most eligible bachelors out there.
Of course.
And so I think that, which position are you maybe most excited to talk about? Which one you got your eye on?
I'm very excited for linebackers. I'm very excited to present to you a couple of receivers and maybe even some offensive tackles. Those were my 2 position groups.
Yeah, we ended up being offense defense. I don't think that wasn't planned or anything.
Yeah, it worked out.
We each, we've got our types.
We do, and I love it.
Defense.
I love it. I think it's great. I'm really excited about this. I think it's going to be a fun exercise. Again, like, we don't even know if any of these guys are going to be on the board when the Falcons choose wherever it is they choose on draft weekend. But it is a cool chance to like talk about some different body types, some different movements, some guys who specialize in some different things and how they can be utilized for the Falcons if that's something that happens.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and get started. Tori, how do you feel about the names Mike, Sam, and Will?
Oh, they're some of my favorite names.
Are they right up there at the top?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, as a Will, I'm very happy to hear that. Right. But I think I've got some linebackers who might just be up your alley. First up, Jacob Rodriguez. I think a lot of fans are familiar with him. He was one of the stars of the 2025 college football season for Texas Tech. I mean, their defense was just littered with playmakers, and he's a guy who just really like stirs the drink. He's a straw that stirs the drink right there from the middle. A real alpha in the room. I think he walks in. He's got presence about him, and he's just an incredible kind of mixture of talent, production, energy, charisma, like leadership. They're really, when you think of the traditional Mike linebacker, but maybe built for today's game, I think Jacob Rodriguez.
Yeah, I like this thought. I really do, especially because he's a projected second rounder. If he falls to the Falcons at 48, I think that's a pretty darn good get at 48. If I'm sitting there at 48 and he's there, it's very enticing. And it's enticing because, unfortunately, the Falcons they no longer have Caden Ellis. And I think that's something that the Falcons are going to have to try to do. It's something that Ian Cunningham and Kevin Stefanski talked about at owners' meetings this past week, is that they understand how much Caden Ellis provided for this defense. Someone like Jacob Rodriguez, to me, makes a lot of sense, because not that he does a lot of what Caden can do. I'm not saying you're never going to find a 1-for-1 for Caden Ellis.
Yep.
But you can find someone who can maybe do 0.75, and then you find someone else to do 0.25 of that, and then you got one. And so I think like you need some more depth at linebacker. This is a very high-end guy who I think has a good ceiling that you can work towards, and I think that you could potentially get a day one starter with him, especially if you're going and getting him in the second round.
Absolutely. I mean, that is where you would be getting one of the most productive players in college football over the last couple of seasons. I think, and I just had a kind of position overview, similar exercise, go up on our website Wednesday afternoon, looking at the linebackers and looking at guys who could be fits in each round. That'll be a series that we're doing throughout April. Tori will write some as well. But I think I said that he gets tackles like he's a hungry hippo. Just gobbling up those tackles. He had 127 2 years ago, 128 this past year. But then he's also really solid in coverage. He's very good downhill rushing the passer. So again, like he's not Caden Ellis. Nobody else is. Yeah. Right? But that doesn't mean you can't still find a very productive, good player in the middle. So I think he would make a lot of sense. But somebody else, if the Falcons, if second round, that's a little too expensive, right? The fancy estates out there, we can't be going to 5-star restaurants every single night. We got to be able to stay in and watch a movie sometimes, get a little bit more value. In the fourth round, Jayshawn Barham out of Michigan. He is one of my favorite people that I've watched so far, frankly, when I've been watching the college film for this. And I'm not a scout or anything, but he played linebacker for the first 3 years of his career. This past year, he switched to basically edge defender, kind of like Lorenzo Carter, Leonard Floyd, stand up, kind of that outside line, but like basically your defensive end. Yeah. But that just tells me, like, if you're saying I can get a player in a linebacker's body with pass rusher skills, who does that remind you of? Yeah, Caden Ellis, yeah. And Jalen Walker. And so that's where I'm starting to look at, okay, the Falcons, this is their flavor of unique, right? Everybody's got their type. This is the little quirk that everybody else might be turned off by, but it's like, I like that. I like what you're bringing to the table. And he is just very like kind of elusive when he is moving downhill. So whether that is against the run, right, and it's an offensive lineman, he can slip them. Like he's got that bendiness, that flexibility, that length, and a nose for the football. So Jayshawn Barham is somebody who I would, if you just kind of want to have fun while watching a college prospect, go check his tape out.
Do you fear or do you wonder that like already having someone like Jalen Walker kind of minimizes a need for this, or do you think that he's somebody who can kind of play a more traditional linebacker role? Because I do feel like that's where the Falcons have the bigger need because of what Jalen Walker can do, and because Jalen Walker has kind of had this home at edge rusher for the last year.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question, and that is something that I've been trying to make sense of, right? Is it kind of what Raheem used to say with wide receivers, where it's like clones? Because my thought is, if you're moving Jalen from the edge at any point back to line, then you still want to have somebody that you really feel good about on that edge and not always have to kind of shift what your front is necessarily, right? Like Zach Harrison being out there, you would have a different body type maybe to go to if you still had somebody like a Leonard Floyd. Maybe this is Azeez, right? Like maybe that's where they kind of have him pigeoned in there. but I could also see you taking two similar players and having that interchangeability.
Right.
One is back there on that second level, one is still off the edge, and you can kind of rotate them around as needed and what their strengths are, right? So passing downs, run downs, maybe there's some maneuverability there. So yeah, I think it's a great question.
Yeah. And where is he projected?
Fourth round.
Fourth round. Okay.
Now again, I think it depends. He's a little bit of beauty's in the eye of the beholder.
Gotcha.
Right?
Yeah.
Because a team could easily say, we see you and project you at edge. A team could easily say, we see and project you as a rushing linebacker on the inside.
For sure.
So
I like having that versatility in the fourth round, though. I think that's kind of what makes a fourth round pick. Why you would be intrigued by someone like this in the fourth round.
Yep. It's like he's got kind of all the tools there.
Yeah.
Maybe he hasn't put it together at the level to be like he's a first, second round pick, but there's a lot to work with there.
Yeah, I like it.
All right, last one. This is seventh round projection, although again, at this, if he goes in the sixth round, not going to be shocked. This is Red Murdoch out of Buffalo. And man, he it's kind of like that guy who's just, maybe there's not a ton to offer there, but he's incredibly funny and makes you laugh every single time. And it's like such an overpowering singular trait that it makes up for so much else. He had 17 forced fumbles in his career, the most in a career at the FBS level ever.
Yeah.
That isn't just luck. That is kind of like some skill and eye for that, a tenacity, a kind of never say die. I'm always punching for this ball. Jeff Ulbrich, he's going to love that.
Yeah.
That is the mindset that he wants to instill. And if, again, you can get that with your last pick in the draft, somebody who at the very least has a skill that I don't know if there's a defensive coordinator across the league that would be like, no, we don't really care about punching the ball out.
Right, yeah.
Now, some are going to stress it more than others, and Jeff Ulbrich is probably on that end of the spectrum where that is what he's stressing. So, yeah, I think Red Murdoch, he's got the typical, he's a seventh round pick for a reason, but he's got the traits and the tools as a run defender.
Yeah.
He had, I think, at least 140 tackles each of the last 2 years. So he's got a nose for the football, all of that, the level of competition thing. But again, I'm looking really no further than those forced fumbles.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he's somebody that I actually, even before we did this exercise and as I was just kind of looking over big boards across, different sites, he was somebody who every time I kind of keep going back to, because
it's funny how you find those
right?
guys, right?
Yeah. I think that there's a lot of value in, if you're looking at a late day 3 pick or even a UDFA, this is somebody who I absolutely kind of feel has diamond in the rough type of background a little bit. And funny enough, I don't know if do you know who held the record for the most forced fumbles
before him?
Before him. He also went to Buffalo. He's also in the league.
Oh. I mean, no, who?
Khalil Mack.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Which I thought was crazy full circle moment that he broke the record of somebody.
Khalil Mack,
yeah. So anyways, I really like if you get to this point in the draft, you're looking for guys who have kind of that one shtick that you can really hold on to, that they're proven in. And for him, it's getting his hands on the football.
Because, that's also a very translatable skill to special teams.
Absolutely. I was about to say the same thing, yeah.
100%. So, again, in coverage, I don't think that's where you want him. You probably want him as an early down player, special teams player, what have you. But, yeah, that is something that is highly valuable in the 7th round.
Yep.
And then my question to you, though, would be, Tori, if they don't go linebacker early, and that's going to be kind of a little element to the way that we've set this up here. By and large, we've got prospects in a bunch of different rounds. I've got one position where I've got all kind of early picks, and we'll get to that. But it really is how this draft unfolds, where the priorities are. So if the Falcons choose not to go linebacker early, what do you think that says about maybe what their plan would then be? Is it Christian Harris and Channing Tindall kind of there with Divine Diablo? Do they expect a J.D. Bertrand to step up, or Troy Anderson, to come back? Or do you think it's Jalen Walker? How would you see that? What would that mean to you, basically?
It would kind of mean that they feel confident in what they have in the building if it's not something where they go. Because I feel like inside linebacker particularly is one of, if not the biggest need on the roster right now, just based on, again, what Caden Ellis provided you. And as much as I think that even Jeff Ulbrich has talked about, like, okay, maybe using Jalen Walker's versatility a little bit more, I don't think that means you're pulling him completely away from what he kind of found a home in last year. I think it's like you sprinkle in some off-ball stuff with him, but I don't think he just automatically turns into your starting inside, like, middle backer. Like, I don't think I don't foresee that being the plan. And so for that reason, it's like you got to find a starter to complement Divine Diablo. And yes, you do have Troy Anderson back this year, who I think is kind of like, he's shown the highest, like, upside and highest potential, but you don't know health-wise. You can't kind of rely on him right now because you haven't been able to rely on him in the last 4 years. So it's nice that you have him, but is he your starter? I don't know. And so if the Falcons were to go through the entire draft and not really find a guy who I think could start day one, it would signal to me that they feel like whatever they have in the building right now, whatever they did in free agency, whatever they did previously, like, they feel like they can make up for that position without having to draft someone. But I do think I would be very shocked if the Falcons went through the whole draft and didn't get an inside guy.
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah.
So, who you think who would you pick for him?
I mean, I think I would go with Jacob Rodriguez.
Yeah.
I think that I'm valuing, as I said, I'm valuing inside linebacker very, very high on the priority list. And I think also just looking at big boards and who could potentially be available at 48, I think if Jacob Rodriguez, I don't even know if he'll be there at 48. So if he is there at 48, I'm like, go get him. Like, that's it. Ian Cunningham has talked about being kind of a best player available type of guy because you don't ever know what's going to happen. You never know what your needs are going to be. Someone could get hurt tomorrow. But I think because you know how much of a priority inside linebacker has to be, I'm using an early pick on an inside linebacker.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I think, actually, Jared, will you do me a favor and kind of keep track of who we're picking here, and if at some point you take another guy second round or what have it, then like let's compare, or let's say, okay, these two, who would you go with?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If we hit that point. Now, we will at some point, just because, again, I got a position coming up that is basically all going to be that first pick.
Gotcha.
Because I think I think a clear message from the team has been run defense so far this offseason. So I think these are positions that are really going to help with that. And Jacob Rodriguez makes a lot of sense. Although I will say there are a lot of linebackers that I like kind of right there in that second round. Josiah Trotter, another one. Jake Golday, another one.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good position, but I love that pick.
Yeah.
I would be very excited to have him here.
100%. All right, so next up, I have our next position group. It's the offensive line, and I'm going to start with kind of a late first-round projection who could potentially fall to early second round. He's an offensive tackle out of Utah, Caleb Lomu, I believe is how
Lomu.
Yeah, I believe that's how you pronounce his last name.
I love me some Lomu.
Yeah, 6'6", 313 pounds. He's pretty high ranking. Again, I don't know if he will. I can't sit here and say that he's absolutely going to be there in the second round, but again, it's kind of the same conversation that we had with Jacob Rodriguez, where if you have him ranked really high and he does fall to you, absolutely, you're getting him, even with the understanding that you have Jake Matthews already, that you have Caleb McGarry coming back from injury. The thing about it is you can't go into this season and be like, oh, we're good at offensive tackle because we have those guys back.
Yeah.
You have to start thinking about a time when you won't have those guys on the roster, because the facts are what they are. Caleb McGarry is ending his deal that he signed a couple years ago. Jake Matthews is probably in the in the twilight of his career overall. So you're talking about over a decade with the Falcons that Jake Matthews has been the guy at left tackle. So you do have to start thinking about, like, what does a succession plan look like for either of those guys because of how important that tackle position is and how much of a premium position is. I think Caleb is somebody who has that long-time starter upside, and he's not known he's known to be a really good pass protector. He has only allowed 2 sacks over 1,600 career snaps, 0 sacks given up in 2025. Playing in 12 games, he only allowed 8 pressures. This is somebody who I think has been a wall at the college level, who I would love to see continue to grow in that way in the pros. Your thoughts?
I'm a little bit fascinated by the number of offensive line prospects who, like, it seems like pass protection is their number one calling card. That being said, you got to protect the quarterback, right? And so I think Lomu, what I'm reading is explosive, an explosive player, somebody who can kind of get out on the move, is square, can really stay balanced. And I think that is what has made Jake Matthews so consistent throughout his career. Is he is very athletic for a left tackle, but it's mostly his ability to play with body control and never really kind of get one way or the other, and he can kind of suffocate. So that's what I'm seeing in Lomu. And so, yeah, I think that has all of the makings of a player who is going to have a long career in the NFL. So,
yeah, and even though like his run blocking grades and kind of his zone and gap grades aren't as high as maybe you would want for a late first, early second, I think that you have to know the situation that you're putting him in.
I was going to say, is that where you are trusting Bill Callahan?
That's where I'm trusting Bill Callahan, and it's where I'm trusting Matthew Bergeron, Chris Lindstrom. Like, these are guys who are going to be here for at least another couple of years. Matthew Bergeron has a couple more years, and Chris Lindstrom, I think, is locked in until, 2028? Yeah. So I'm not worried too much about that as he grows in his ability in run blocking. So
now, the Falcons did run outside of the tackles at the highest clip in the league last season. So it's got to be a part of the offerings here, right?
And it's not like he's not.
It's true.
Right?
True. He's not like running down there with his hands behind his back as like a run blocker. Yeah.
Right. And I also don't think that he's somebody who would be called upon super early. Again, you still have Caleb McGarry coming back, who we know what he's been able to do over the last couple of seasons in run blocking. You still have Jake Matthews coming back. This is more of a, hey, we're thinking about the future, and I think you have time to get him where you need him to be in kind of this running gap.
You're telling me that Caleb Lomu contains multitudes.
Yes.
There's depth to this man. Good.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Hey, I like that. I'll draw it out of him. Yeah.
So I'm moving on to our next bachelor question mark. And this is kind of an interesting thought that I really want you to play around with, because this is not a tackle. He's not a guard. And I know that tackle and guard is kind of the main parts of the offensive line that everybody thinks of. Yeah. But up next, I have center Connor Liu from Auburn.
We got a Lomu and a Liu.
Yes, exactly. And he is a projected third-round guy. Doesn't mean he's going to be there. Also doesn't mean that he won't be there. I really like this thought, because in terms of just true centers in this draft class, there aren't that many. And Connor is one of the top-rated ones. He has a PFF rank of 80, which I realize is like kind of right in line where the Falcons are picking at 79 in the third round. He only played in 7 games in 2025 because of a torn ACL, but he's only allowed 3 sacks over 1,600 total snaps through 3 college seasons. I like the idea, too, even though you have Ryan Newsel right now. We saw what Drew Dahlman became for not just the Falcons, but for Chicago in his last year there. Yep. He was a 4th-round draft pick. I think that you can find really good centers in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round that can kind of grow into the position and be something for you. It's a difficult position to kind of be in because you are calling protections and there is a lot on your shoulders. But I think in terms of somebody who has done it at a high level for a good amount of time, you're not having to move someone who's played guard primarily over the last 2 years. This is somebody he is a true center. And I think that is valuable. Hey, he's also from Kennesaw. So he's a local kid. So I love that too.
He is a hometown boy. But yeah, no, I see, so wrestling background, I love that in a center. You know, like as many offensive linemen as I can have who know how to wrestle and use, like, get strength from a multitude of different body positions, you know, and leverage is such a huge part of both of those sports. I'm all in on that. And I agree. Like, I think center is one of those positions that you kind of, I'd be down to have that be a pick in the mid rounds most drafts. You know, like if you can find one and you can kind of find them at any point, like I would be curious. I haven't looked into this, but just like how the data like skews out with number of like Pro Bowlers and where they fall in which round for the center position. But if you find one, it's so invaluable, especially if it's somebody who kind of connects and jives with your quarterback. And so that is where I think a benefit of him really being a center is he probably has that like specific language down and does, I don't know if he checked pass protections and called stuff for the line at Auburn, but like that is a skill that good centers have.
He does.
Okay.
Yeah.
However, I will also, that could be a strike against him because I do think a lot of teams value that interior versatility, right? So, yeah, however the Falcons fall on that side of it, right? But having somebody who can play guard and center, they're the negatives that come with that as well. But especially because how they feel about Ryan Nuzul as the starter kind of returning, that would be one case is like, where are you positioning him as a 4th round pick, right?
Yeah, third
round pick. Okay.
But potentially 4th.
Yeah.
All right, so moving forward, I have another offensive tackle for you, and he is also a 3rd round projection. This is offensive tackle Brian Parker II. He is a very interesting prospect because some people had him rated quite a bit higher, and some people had him rated quite a bit lower. So I just kind of took everything like right there in the 3rd round as like a grain of salt, but I will say that. So probably someone with a high ceiling, low floor, kind of you don't know where he's going to end up. But this is somebody who has in terms of just like consistency, I think between his like run blocking ability versus pass blocking ability, like he's kind of been very consistent over the course of his career at Duke. I would be interested to know kind of where the Falcons would value him because he has been primarily a right tackle, but there also are a lot of individuals who, to your point about like moving around the offensive line, there are a lot of individuals who project him as a guard at the pro level. So he has that flexibility across the line that could be very valuable, especially for a 3rd, 4th round pick. Your thoughts?
Yeah, better pass blocker, run blocker? I know you say he's kind of balanced, but which way?
Well, I mean, his run block grade is 83.9. His pass block grade is 83.4.
It's pretty close.
Right, yeah.
It's pretty close.
So
the reason I'm asking is, you know, now we got 2 lefty quarterbacks. This is blindside, right? So
yeah, but he doesn't have to be like right tackle. Like, yes, he did all of the like right tackle snaps for Duke this past year, but earlier in his career he was on the left side.
We're so situated at guard, and again, I like Jake. I'm not pushing Jake out the door.
Right.
So I think, you and I are big fans of Caleb McGarry. Like I think I'm on the record about that. But coming off of an injury, right? So if there's a place that I'm slotting him to kind of look at early, it's probably there on the right side.
Yeah, but I don't think he's a slot in early option.
Okay.
I don't see him as
all of these
year one. Yeah. I don't see any of these guys coming in on day one and usurping the guys you already have here unless there's an injury at play. And then that's a whole different type of conversation.
Usurping makes it sound so nefarious.
I know, right? Yeah.
Like they're scheming against.
Right, they're scheming against everybody. But no, that's what I want to say about all these. I'm not saying that any of these guys would be a day one starter if all 5 of the offensive line that we already have penciled in are 100% healthy.
Okay.
This is these are future guys in my brain because of the depth that you are, or what you already have at offensive line.
Where do they, if you had to rank them on the bad boy scale? I know offensive linemen can be bad boys and nasty down in the trenches. So which one has the biggest mean streak?
I have no idea. I don't know. I genuinely I've watched film on them, but I don't know them as people.
Oh, you haven't? I thought we were screening these guys before we were going to suggest, eligible candidates. I went on dinner dates with every single prospect that I'm going to present to you today.
I'm a career woman. I've been busy with all of the new uniform stuff. You're lucky that I have all of this.
I trust you to vet the bachelors you're throwing my way.
I did. I vetted them.
Thought you were a friend.
I vetted them through all I could vet them through without shaking their hand.
I love it. All right, I want to do Connor Lew, because I do think if the Falcons are looking to add to their offensive line, center is a position that I can see them looking at, just that interior. I have nothing against Ryan Newsel, but I think you saw kind of the transformative impact that Drew Dahlman had for the Bears kind of last season. Yeah. And I think that would mean something to add competition there at the very least, and kind of elevate the skill
floor.
Yep, there you go. Yeah. Love it.
In the words of Ian Cunningham.
All right, so let's move on to defensive tackle.
Yay!
Took Connor Lew in the 3rd round there. At center, defensive tackle, these are all going to be 2nd, 3rd round guys for you, because this is, as I kind of touched on earlier, I think I could really see this being in play.
Yeah.
The start of day 2.
Absolutely.
All right. So first off, we got Lee Hunter out of Texas Tech.
I like it.
Man, I'm throwing out a bunch of Texas Tech. I really did.
I know. Well, defense. It's because they had Texas Tech, and then I think that what they were able to do defensively over the course of the last year was just pretty special. I liked it.
It really was. Yeah, Jared, our resident BYU fan, unfortunately knows that a little bit
he's like,
too well. Sorry, Jared, you're just catching strays this whole podcast. So, Lee Hunter, just wow. We'll turn on the tape. The dude is just wrecking plays left and right. Huge, 6'4", 318, and really kind of powerful. Yeah. He plays bull in a china shop style. As a pass rusher, it's basically a bull rush, because that's kind of all he's needed. But I don't think the Falcons are necessarily with Brandon Dorlus, what he did with Rukaroro, with Zach Harrison. I like the pass rush ability of kind of their interior guys. To me, again, it's run defense. It's somebody who can eat up some blocks, who can free up the guys behind them, who can free up somebody like Brandon Dorlus to make some plays. So that's where, first and foremost, I'm kind of looking at these options. And Lee Hunter is so strong and powerful that he can control any block that he's against. And he was really, really impressive at Texas Tech. So
yeah, I think that's the one thing that I consistently find myself looking at when I'm looking at defensive tackles. I'm like, how are they against the run? That is the one area of this defense that, for as good as it was in 2025, where it needs to take the biggest step forward in 2026, and this is something Jeff Ulbrich talked about, is in stopping the run. And, based on the scheme that they run with this attack style front, it does kind of it's a give and take a little bit, because you can't do everything, so you give and take a little bit. But if you have one person who is the core of your defensive line, who has this major upside in stopping the run, I think that's worth pursuing, especially for a 2nd round pick, because we've seen kind of the early returns on Brandon Dorlus, who was a 4th round pick, but also Rukaroro as a 2nd round pick. So I think that I like the idea of having these kind of young bucks at interior defensive line to go along with Nate Ollie, and I like the culture of that room. And Lee Hunter seems like the type of guy who has a different set of skill sets that I think complements the room overall very well.
Absolutely. And this is probably a conversation I'd like to get into with you at some future point, but a real case can be made that build up your defense a little bit in this draft and continue to add. And again, Philly has been mentioned a few times this offseason on these podcasts just because of some of the moves they've made, but there's some smarts to that.
Yeah.
All right. Next one is Dante Corleone, Godfather, coming in. Out of Cincinnati, another 2nd round projection, and he is another just space eater. Yeah. He's 340 pounds and is just an anchor. He will clog up the lane, and really you have to dedicate bodies to move him, to uproot him. He can just grow roots and stay planted right there. And that is where, if you are looking at ways to, I think, maintain some of the pass rush or like attacking mentality and coverage options, you then need your players, the guys who are out there on the field, to have that kind of speciality in the run defense. And if offenses have to dedicate 2-3 guys to one player, that's freeing up your other 10.
100%.
Like that changes the math a little bit in the way that offenses are usually looking to change the math in their favor. On run plays, if 2-3 guys got to get one dude out of there, you got a numbers advantage right away. So that's where, with me and Dante Corleone, like, I see the value of that.
Yeah, I think that with Dante, what I like is kind of the speed that he also has, like the quick area speed. Like, that was one of the things in the scouting report, was that like he's quicker than his 340 pounds suggests. And that's something that, when you're talking about like short area bursts and you're talking about like shooting gaps and everything like that, like that's what you need from a guy. You need kind of a guy who's pretty twitchy in the interior. I know everybody wants to talk about twitch and juice on the edge, but I love an interior guy who has a little bit of twitch and juice. And this is somebody who I think embodies that in kind of the style of which he's played at the college level. He ran a 5.1 40 time, which is like, when you have a 340-pound man running at you like that, going that fast, like I don't know about y'all, but I'd be scared. But I really like kind of the twitchiness that I feel like he's displayed.
Yeah, no, he's much quicker than you would expect when you just see him
walking about.
100%. All right, next and last, we got Darrell Jackson out of Florida State. Now, he's kind of late second round, right? So second, third round kind of range is his projection, and he is like, just look at him. Look how long his arms are, like how broad his chest is. Like, he is size. And so he may not, he's 315, right? So that's definitely not small, but he's 6'. It's like Calais Campbell-esque, right? And that is where he has just length that you cannot coach. And kind of one hallmark of Jeff Ulbrich is that he also loves length. You know, I think back to Devondre Campbell at linebacker, right? Like, the way that he was able to get the most out of somebody just with this rare size. And so he uses that length, again, to eat up blocks, to control multiple gaps and free up others. And that's really kind of the theme of what I'm giving you here in the interior, is the ability to allow others to operate around them because they are getting so much attention.
Yeah, and I think a reason why kind of you're seeing him more as a like second and third round projection is because like his pass rush numbers kind of dwindled a bit from 2014 to 2025. But the other side of that same coin was that a lot of evaluators kind of said that even though that fell off, his ability to like improve as an overall tackler improved, which I can appreciate that in a young guy who is growing in the game and growing in the position. And as you said, he's kind of undersized in the traditional sense. He's not 340 pounds, like he's not 330 pounds, whatever these two guys were before him. He's 315, but again, talking about that length and kind of using that length as being a better asset in run blocking or in run defense. Like, those are things that I think like you can kind of be okay with one and not the other at this point in time in their career. That I like this pick too.
Yeah, and again, it complements what you already have. Like Brandon Dorless getting 8 sacks last year. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Rukaroro, like, he's got so much, I think, more to offer as a pass rusher because of what I've seen from him. And so I expect those numbers to kind of continue to increase year over year. It's like you've got good interior rushers, right? So you can add a player like this where some other teams may not be in that position.
Right.
All right. So I know we went second round with Jacob Rodriguez.
I know. What do you want to do? Do we want to like say one of these guys drops to the third? But we already have a third round in Connor.
For this, we can sidestep that rule a little bit. What would you take, though, defensive tackle or linebacker. Like, let's say any of these three are on the board, and Jacob Rodriguez is there.
I think I'd still take Jacob Rodriguez.
Okay.
Like, just because of Jacob Rodriguez, I think that there's a lot of actual, like, really good depth at defensive tackle that I think you could, even if you don't get the guy that you maybe want in the second round, I think there's still a lot of, like, really good guys in the third round. So let's just
they slip. There's a run on linebackers started by Jacob Rodriguez.
Or the Falcons get a third round pick, like another third round pick. I would go with Dante Corleone is who of these three I gravitate towards a little bit.
Just that size.
I think that
you can't ignore it.
Yeah, I think it's good. And then again, it was that like short area quickness and the jazz of Dante Corleone. I like it.
The jazz.
She's jazzy.
Oh my gosh. I love it. Corleone, welcome in.
All right, so we're switching to the other side of the ball. Very different position group as we're just moving right along. I've got receivers for you. And the first one is a guy that we've already talked about in this podcast, and it is Jeremy Bernard from Alabama. And he's a multi-role receiver projected late second round, so maybe you could even see him slipping into third. I don't really think so. But 14 games played, 64 receptions on 120 targets for 862 yards, 7 touchdowns. He played about 186 of his total 539 total snaps at slot, while 335 were out wide. I really like this guy. I know that my personal opinion about wide receivers is that I don't really think that you go after a guy like this in the second round. I'm okay with.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm just, my mind is so focused on linebacker and D tackle. Like, I'm so zeroed in personally right there that
look at him.
I know, but also, I mean, I like the idea still of, like, what you already have. You already have Drake London, Jahan Dodson. Bijan plays such a role in what you do in the pass game. You still have Kyle Pitts. Like, you're, potentially looking at longer extensions for Drake London, even though I think that someone like Jeremy Bernard can complement Drake London's skill set because of all the different things that Bernard did with Alabama. I'm not willing to trade off a, like, linebacker or a D tackle for a receiver in the second round specifically, which is where you're talking about him specifically. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. Yeah, it's where what you would be giving up and what you're getting, right? Like, and that's not even about the specific player. It's more about the priorities of roster building for you. And yeah, that's a totally fair argument. I think it's valid if you feel that way. I'm not going to tell you how you should feel one way or the other.
How do you feel, though, Will?
I feel as though you mentioned kind of liking what you've got on offense. I also do, but what you don't really have, I think, is exactly the type of player that Jeremy Bernard is.
Right. Yeah.
Which is, think like Amon-Ra St. Brown, think Anquan Bolden, think, a lot of the Rams receivers. Yeah, what Emeka Egbuka was last year in kind of that third receiver, second receiver role at times.
Yep.
Really, it's a player who operates in that intermediate part of the field over the middle.
Yep.
Somebody who can kind of win on the muddy plays, a good yards after the catch specialist where you can get him the ball and he can keep running. So all of those areas are where Jeremy Bernard kind of thrives.
Yeah.
So you've got your number one in Drake. You've got a mismatch nightmare in, frankly, both, I think, Bijan and Kyle a little bit. I want somebody who's going to work in between the nucleus of all of that, like kind of be that intermediary person. And that's where I think Jeremy Bernard actually does make a lot of sense for the way that this offense is constructed. But yeah, I totally think it's valid to look at position value with the roster.
Well, let's move forward a little bit because I have another option for you, and this is someone who's projected in the third round. Wide receiver Malachi Fields out of Notre Dame. He is a bit more of a, like, outside X receiver. These pictures are just like, whew. I mean, and that's kind of the nature of what like you are getting with Fields is this guy who his contested catch rate is kind of like through the roof, and what he can do against, some guys, he can make some guys look a little silly, and just I think the athletic ability, he's one of the scouting reports is that he's built like a power forward at 6'4", 218. Sounds very similar, yes, to Drake London and what Drake London provides, but in the nature of like finding people to complement. Like this is somebody who, yes, has a very similar type of skill set, but maybe that opens things up for Drake London. It's just different thought for you about, and because Drake London does so much out of the slot, like kind of finding more of a more of a guy who is like a true X guy. I like that. And then he went to the Senior Bowl this past year, and Daniel Jeremiah of NFL Network called him the best receiver of the entire week of practice. And I think that, like, in terms of stock, I think his stock has risen, not exponentially, because I think people already thought highly of him, but I think he's somebody who I feel like I'm seeing more and more smoke for.
He's got some buzz about him.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. To me, it's really interesting. Do you remember when we were talking to Ben Solak at the Combine, and he was kind of like, who they get at wide receiver, I think indicates a little bit about what they kind of want to do offensively.
Yeah.
And I think you can even add another part of that wrinkle too with Tua.
Yeah.
Is like where Michael Penix likes to go is deep, outside the numbers, on the boundary, kind of these like jump balls downfield, deep over them. Like he's a downfield thrower.
Yeah.
Tua gets the ball out of his hands very quickly, usually on a lot of these in-breaking routes. So in a way, like the way Jeremy Bernard feels like he would fit right into Tua's breadbasket, I really do think Malachi Fields fits Michael Penix very much.
Agree
and you would just have this like the Brazil of soccer style of football where you're just like, we're absolutely just kicking through passes and just trying to sprint and go downfield and attack. It's like North Carolina basketball with Ty Lawson running it. Like that's what this would be, is we're going over the top, jump balls, downfield, and we're stressing defenses vertically. So I think Malachi Fields, like he checks a ton of those boxes in that way. It really is about stylistically, what are you going for?
So I want to stay on this kind of idea of like stylistically, because I've got someone else who also is kind of this projected outside X guy who has a lot of outside stuff, doesn't have hardly any slot stuff, which I think that was also by design as I was thinking of receivers that I wanted to pull for you. I really didn't want a slot guy. I know that a lot of people are like, Zachariah Branch or die. Like that's how a lot of people are kind of like living right now. Those are just your burners. Yeah, right, yeah. But I kind of wanted to think about the wide receiver position a bit more holistically in the way that it works with the entire unit. I have, for my third player that I'm going to show you, he's a projected 5th-round pick, but he's kind of like similar in a way to Malachi Fields in that like of just what he was asked to do. And this is CJ Daniels from Miami. He, again, projected 5th-round guy. He's a bit smaller than what you would get in Malachi Fields. Not by a whole lot, though, by a couple inches and a few pounds. But I thought what he did and the role that he played for Miami this past year was something to take note of. I liked that. I liked the 7 touchdowns. I like the 50 receptions on 67 targets. So high catch rate for this guy. I think that also goes to your quarterback as much as like anything else too. If he's throwing it in your wheelhouse, you got it. But he has he's very quick, 4.4 40 time. And then his player comps are Luke McCaffrey from the Commanders and Kevin Austin Jr. from the Saints, which I think could be an interesting thought about placing someone like this, especially a 5th-round guy, into this wide receiver core.
Yeah, I was just looking up because his name was escaping me for a second, but almost like how Jacksonville last year with Parker Washington in their offense, he kind of did a little bit about what I like with Jeremy Bernard, which is like fill in the space around everybody. Like he on a basketball court, right, when you're spreading around 3 points, he's like floating kind of in that middle range, the 2-point range, and just finding the zone, right? So he has a little bit of everything to his game, and I like even though we think about wide receivers and run blocking as like you need to get closer to the line of scrimmage to really utilize that, if he brings tenacity as a run blocker on the furthest edges, I really think that will help create even more explosive plays than you saw on the ground. last time. And so this is an interesting wide receiver class. I do think when you get into kind of like the day 3 picks, there is value there. And so, yeah, I think CJ Daniels, like, he brings a lot to the table versatility wise, even if he's not dominant in any one area. But
I mean, it's a 5th round pick. So
yeah, it really kind of, again, a lot of this to me is going to be about who you're, how you're building the roster, right? So
I think a big thing that I like about CJ Daniels too, and again, in the context of potentially being a 5th round pick, is he does have, like, he's a reliable guy.
Yep.
I even reading, when he was with LSU in 2024, recorded 0 drops on 42 catches, posted a 91.4 drop grade that season. I mean, I just think that there's something to be said about that as well when you're looking for a guy who is filling in where you need him to fill in. Yep. You need to be able to trust that he can do what you need him to do, and that's catch the ball.
Yeah. So I think I'm thinking personnel groupings, formations, who's on the field when, the versatility, the flexibility that you can have. And I think, again, for what this year is and the momentum you've got on the defensive side of the ball, I'm more leaning with going with CJ Daniels there in the 5th round, because I agree with you that beefing up the trenches, looking defense early, like, that makes a lot of sense and can potentially have the biggest impact year 1 while also setting you up for a couple years down the road. So for that reason, with a player like CJ Daniels in the 5th round, he complements what you're doing. Let's go with him.
Yeah, I love it. All right, let's go to our last
one.
Yeah.
Let's flip it to the defensive side again. We got cornerbacks.
Yay.
These are fun. This is a good cornerback class.
Very deep.
Yep, 100%. All right, so number 1 for you, I've got D'Angelo Pons.
Yeah.
Out of Indiana. He is interesting because, Tori, how you feel about short kings?
I don't mind them.
No?
Yeah.
Okay, you don't mind
Some of my
them.
best friends are short kings.
Love it. Well, D'Angelo Pons absolutely puts the king in short king because 5'9", 182 at the combine. But here's where is one of my all-time favorite Falcons is Brent Grimes. The dude could, like, jump out of the Georgia Dome. His vertical is 43.5, 100th percentile.
Yeah.
Like, that's
crazy.
Insane.
Yeah.
He ran a 4.35 40. So you look at him and you're like, physically, right, not like jumping off the page, but athletically, he's like in a class all by himself. And we saw how much Brent Grimes was able to make up for what a lot of people on paper would be like, he doesn't check a lot of the boxes that we like are must checks for us. But I think the Falcons were pretty pleased with what they got out of Brent Grimes. And the hope here is that D'Angelo Pons can be that kind of same athletic outlier in the league, because it is no secret that teams are going to isolate a player where they feel like a mismatch can be had. And while it's great Mike Evans is now out of the division, you do still have some other good players, Tet McMillan, like jump ball specialists, who they would try to isolate on a player like this. So can his vertical make up for that? He's also a feisty, like, competitor.
Yeah.
Flies downhill, tackles in the run defense, lays the wood on wide receivers right after they make the catch. So he offers a lot, even though people might at first blush be like, swipe left.
Yeah, and I think that what I like about him particularly is, even if you're using a 2nd round pick on him, and run with me here, but I think that something that I like about him is that when you look at what he also did on special teams, there is something to be said about, even if he's not ready to go day 1 as a starter opposite A.J. Terrell on defense, this is someone who has 2 blocked punt return touchdowns, has genuine return ability that I think the Falcons need. They need to, that's a part of kind of the shuffle of special teams that no one's really talked about, is the Falcons return game and who's going to be that guy for them. I like the idea of, even if he's not, again, ready to go day 1, there is upside in a lot of other areas for him. And again, elevating the floor, bringing in competition, it's not the end of the world for this guy, even if it's not a day one starter. But still, I think for me, as I'm roster building, I'm going into the second round and I'm like, I need a day one starter. And as I would love to see that it be him, but I'm not entirely sure just yet.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I do think the upside is very real with him. And weirdly, seeing Atlanta take Billy Bowman last year makes me maybe less like locked in on, okay, they have a type than I might have otherwise would, because I mentioned Jeff Ulbrich likes length, right?
Yeah.
Like that when you look at the profile of players, he is like, they're long guys. Billy Bowman, that was a knock against him, right? With shorter arms, but the tenacity, the kind of like fire made up for that. And I think Pons has a lot of those qualities that would make up for, again, what a lot of people would look at first and foremost. All right, next one. We've got Davison Igbinosun out of Ohio State, 4th round projection. And I mentioned length. He's long, 6'2", 32 7/8 inch arms. And he is just kind of a son of a gun out there at the cornerback position. Like, he is pesty.
Yeah.
He gets into the body of wide receivers and then he just like works them. He runs them to the sideline. He stays in their back pocket. Like, he is pretty feisty out there. Now, the flip side of that, penalties have been an issue for him, but I'm always going to err on the side of, is this something that is coachable? Can a coach have an impact in this area of the game? And that falls under that category for me. So that is a factor. It's not going to be like an overwhelming factor for me. He's also good against the run. So this is an area where like the theme for the defense this offseason in my mind is kind of that run defense. And he has shown kind of consistent development and improvement, which is something I think this staff is rating really, really highly. So Davison Igbinosun offers a lot physically. He's got the experience coming from Ohio State. Like, there's a lot to like here on the beginning of day 3.
Yeah, I like the height, and I do like, to your point, like the penalties can be something that you look at, but when you're looking at someone who's a 4th round pick or even like potentially moving into the 5th round, like it's something that you're like, okay, like you can look past that early in their career as they hone in more on their technique, which is something that it was saying like he did have a clear cleanup from 2024 to 2025 in terms of kind of how much he was penalized. I think that he's one of those type of players that like his length and how aggressive he does play can kind of like get misconstrued maybe even sometimes. Not saying that anyone's like
he's like not getting the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, because he's just so like when you watch him play, it's like, well, he's all over the guy. Like, and yes, you can't be. But I think that there is something to be said about that I would need to like look more into. But I like him in the 4th round specifically. I don't know if we have taken anybody in the 4th round just yet. Have we? I don't believe so.
Yeah. That wasn't necessarily a requirement of this exercise, but it is nice that it's kind of working out.
But I do really like Davison. I really do.
Yeah. Fun name too.
Yeah.
The one thing is, you can't really take him salsa dancing. His hips tight. That's the main knock against him. So, we'll see. But again, there's always some give and take when you get into day 3. Last one for you, Damani Jackson out of Alabama. Now, he is from a big program, which the Falcons, you and I were talking about this the other day, like, we need to see what Ian Cunningham and his crew, what their tendencies are. But in recent years, the Falcons, in their later rounds, have tended to like players who come from these big-time programs like Alabama, like Georgia.
Yeah.
So Damani Jackson has that on his resume. He's got kind of everything that you would look for if you were designing a cornerback. Like, he's got good length. He's got good athleticism. He looks the part out there on the field. It's just that his production has never really matched up to the sum of those individual parts, right? So he's going to be a very quintessential, like, how do you weigh what you're kind of seeing in what he's offering you in terms of a package of a player versus how he's actually used all of that together and what it's produced.
That's kind of the main thing that you as an evaluator, not saying I am an evaluator, but it is something where it's like I tend to lean just in my own personal thinking. It's like you got to show me. It's the exact conversation that we had last week about you got to show it to me. I got to see it on tape to believe it. You can't just say like, oh, this guy has great speed, great arm length, like he's tall, he's lanky, he's like he can play so well, but then over a couple years of recent production, it's just kind of like he's just there.
Yeah.
And I think like that's where I am with him specifically. It's like I can watch him play at Alabama and I know he's there, but in terms of like splash plays, in terms of like kind of having this like really high upside that you have seen, I don't know if we've seen it. And so that's why, and granted, we are talking about a 6th-round projection, so like that's okay.
Yep.
But if I'm looking at these 3 guys in totality, he's one that I don't think I would even like look to right away. It would take a bit more convincing for me, especially knowing how many needs there are across the team.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, again, with only 5 picks at this point in time, you need guys who are going to make an impact on the field. Yeah. Is he just going to be a presence on the field, or is he going to make his presence felt on the field? And that's where you look at it. That hasn't been the case so far, even though, again, he checks a lot of boxes for what you would look for. So it sounds to me like you have a pretty clear answer on this. You want to?
Yeah, Davison for sure.
There we go.
Yeah, in the 4th round. I think that's a really good pick in the 4th round.
I love it. Yeah. So let's see. Jared just sent it. Let's roll through it in the 2nd round. Jacob Rodriguez. 3rd round, we had Connor Lew, center out of Auburn. Then we also 3rd round Dante Corleone. Who would you feel comfortable doubling up defense, or would you feel kind of convicted in going linebacker at 2nd round, and then you would want to go offensive line? Like, how would you lean between, let's say, Corleone's there in the 3rd, Connor Lew is there in the 3rd?
I would rather put draft picks into my defense.
Okay.
That's how I personally lean.
Maybe we should pencil that in as a bigger conversation in a future episode, because I feel the same way, and I think you and I could really have a good conversation about that as to why that makes a lot of sense. So cool. With our 5th round pick, we got C.J. Daniels out of wide receiver out of Miami, and then 4th round we took Davison Igbinosun out of Ohio State. So if we're going to say Corleone over Lew, that would be 3 defensive players and a wide receiver. Feels about right, not even including a 6th round pick.
Right, yeah.
So who knows?
We'll see. Yeah.
You feel good about that?
Yeah, I feel good about it. I personally am leaning more towards like the defensive guys in this draft.
Yeah, you're all defense.
Not that I, don't see the need for an offensive lineman, an offensive tackle. I do. I absolutely do. It's not that I don't see a need for wide receiver. If we're talking about 2nd and 3rd round, I am leaning towards the 3 main needs of the defense, which is inside linebacker, defensive tackle, and cornerback. Heck, also throw in some edge rushers. I think there's some good edge rushers on day 2, early day 3 that I've been enjoying watching as well.
Yeah, I hope they take 5 tight ends.
There you go.
That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah.
All right, this was a long episode, but the goal here is really just to introduce people to as many prospects as possible this time of year, and I feel like we accomplished that mission. So jerseys came out today. We played a matchmaking game today. Thank you all so much for listening to today's show. We've got a lot of really awesome stuff planned over the next 4 weeks or so until the draft comes, and then we'll share with you as we get a little closer, kind of like the exact draft plan for that weekend. We don't want to give it to you too early, and then save some for as we get closer. But I think coming up next week, we're going to continue to talk about some of our very favorite prospects and just why they have stood out to us. And on top of that, we would love to hear some kind of like listener feedback. I know on YouTube, check out our YouTube channel where you can also find the amazing jersey release video. But leave comments. Let us know what you like, what you don't like about the show. We always want to try to improve and come up with new ideas for you all. So any bit of feedback helps. You can leave it on Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to your podcasts. and share it with your friends. So that's what we got for you all today. Thank you so much for listening to the Friday Five. For Tori McElhaney, I'm Will McFadden, and we will see you next time.